With the scent of an upset victory still fresh in his nostrils, opposition leader Bob Carr was back in electioneering mode today, pressing the flesh in the crucial electorate of the entrance. With an appeal expected to be lodged with the Court of Disputed Returns tomorrow, defeated ALP candidate Grant McBride finds himself still on the campaign trail almost 2 months after the last vote was cast.
We are on the election trail. Our view at the moment is that there will be a by-election. The court will rule in our favour. That being the case, there'll be an election here before the end of the year.
McBride lost the seat to sitting Liberal member Bob Graham by just 116 votes, but says he would have won comfortably had the 750 informal votes been counted. If the court does order a by-election, a win to the ALP could see a hung parliament, with neither party having the majority needed to effectively govern. Not surprisingly, Mr Carr was out to score as many political points as possible.
Mr Grant is behaving every bit as arrogantly. He's hurting ordinary people with sharp increases in government charges. And he's doing what we've seen here today. He's cutting human services. And he's learnt nothing from the election outcome. And I think it's a government very much on its last legs.
No decision has yet been made on whether an appeal will be lodged against the result in the seat of Maitland as well. The opposition has until early September to make up its mind.
At City Hall in Newcastle, similar concerns were aired over the state government's decision to axe the Hunter Area Health Scheme. The scheme provides nearly $2 million a year to establish new community services in the area, but that has now come to a grinding halt. We feel it here as hard as what they're feeling it in Sydney?
Oh, certainly, and certainly with coming on top of the recession, and also now it's becoming more obvious cuts to health services and public transport services and so on because of the cutbacks across the board, and they disproportionately affect the people that the Area Assistance Scheme is designed to help.
The government has agreed to fund existing schemes, but according to organiser Greg Giles, the effects will still be far-reaching.
The services targeted at aged people, at young people, about 20% of the money goes into youth services. There's services that are aimed at helping isolated areas such as small local government areas up the valley, and most of those services just can't get money from anywhere else.
Because the government's decision affects community and welfare groups throughout the region, on the Mid-North Coast and on the Central Coast, a committee has been formed to organise future protest action. While the government claims the scheme has just been suspended, organisers say if it isn't brought back now, it never will be. Small-scale open-cut operations have been underway at the site since 1989. Now work has begun on this underground shaft, the first to be developed in New South Wales in more than a decade. After touring the new works and posing for a quick photo, Ian Causley performed his first major role in his new portfolio as Minister for Natural Resources. By 1995, it's hoped United will be producing 2 million tonnes of coal a year. AB Coal is confident of reaching that target with the help of a unique agreement with the United Mine Workers Federation. The Australian-based company owns 95% of the mine, the United Mine Workers Federation of Australia 5%. It's the first alliance of its kind in Australia and one the company hopes will be financially beneficial.
The markets for the coal are there, but in order for us to win our share of them, we have to be competitive. And we'd much rather be working with people and working towards a common goal. And we think the partnership with the union will allow us to do that and make this a very competitive mine.
The UMFA is quick to point out United will not be treated differently from any other mine. However, the union estimates it will earn close to $1 million from the deal, money which goes directly to a special trust fund.
Any monies which will be coming to the union will go directly to that trust, and that trust will be used for social objectives such as helping remote communities with transport, maybe social facilities, libraries, assisting with accommodation for retired mine workers and so on.
The United Colliery will employ a workforce of around 200, with coal extraction to begin at the end of the year. Jodie McKay, NBN News. Monsignor Roger Kennedy is an institution, a man well known and respected in the Catholic Church and well loved in the parish and community of Gateshead.
I had dreamt for a long time about Australia. It was a place I always wanted to come and see. And when the opportunity presented itself for me to offer my services for this diocese, I was delighted.
He came to Australia from Ireland in 1943, settling first in Muswellbrook, and later in 1963 he founded the parish of Gateshead.
We had a church at Redhead, but no buildings in Gateshead, none at all. So I used borrowed buildings. St Mary's High School had just started, was about to start, and I used their assembly hall as the church, and I used 2 of their spare classrooms to start the school.
But a man who has devoted 50 years of his life to the church can never fully retire. Monsignor Kennedy says he will stay in Newcastle with his friends and has definite plans for the future.
I'm going to play a little bit more golf. I'll do a bit of reading. I'm very interested in history, and I've done quite a bit of research on historical events, and I'd like to put them all together.
Talk to anyone who knows Monsignor Kennedy and you begin to understand what a special person he is.
He's just a wonderful, wonderful man, a wonderful priest, a very caring man.
More than special, more than unique. He's just one of a million.
When fire brigade crews attacked the blaze at the Boltons yesterday morning, they were enacting a well-rehearsed drill. Residents who have long feared that a fire in the densely populated inner city dwellings would be too much for the brigade conceded that they were up to the task.
The fire brigade responded very, very well and have managed to contain the fire.
Each time the fire brigade answers a call in the Newcastle city area, they're aware they could confront another desperate situation where residents are trapped in confusing, cluttered arrays of flats, extensions and subdivisions, many of which have never been approved by council. But Health and Building Inspector Harold Stewart says much of the historic area was constructed before modern fire safety standards, and the situation is now outside council's control.
The inner city area is dotted with these isolated residential sections. They're generally all privately owned though, and they've got 3 or 4 houses in each. As such, they don't really fit into any of the current fire safety regulations.
Council's powers don't extend to imposing fire safety rules on existing private residences or their tenants. It's more concerned with policing larger public areas like hotels and boarding houses where those inside aren't able to make their own safety precautions.
I think it certainly has lessons for the people of the city and people who live in those areas. I mean, really, they need to take a lot of their own action and provide some form of alarm system such as smoke or heat detectors.
Police haven't established a cause for yesterday's tragic fire. Names of the victims are expected to be released late tomorrow. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Port Stephens oyster growers have been fighting to have the Pacific oyster legalised for many years. Last November, the state government said the mollusk would be allowed only in Port Stephens with an $80 a bag levy, a fee stated to cover research costs. This week, that levy was changed to $150 per hectare of lease, a drop in effect of nearly 75%.
It's like having probably 5 bashings or 1 bashing. Which one are you going to take? And the oyster farmers are probably happy to have 1 bashing instead of 5.
Opposition spokesman on fisheries Bob Martin says the levy is unfair, with Port Stephens growers singled out to carry the cost. What irks local Pacific oyster growers the most is that Tasmanian Pacific oysters are being sold in New South Wales, including right here in the Hunter. The Tassie crop doesn't have the special levy, so Port Stephens growers face a distinct financial disadvantage. It's estimated the levy will add 30 cents to the cost of each oyster, the average grower paying about $8,000 per year. Many already facing tight times with their businesses on the rocks. The growers have called for a levy for all oyster farmers across the board. Understandably, those unaffected by the fee have rejected the call.
The arrival of a diesel rail motor at Newcastle Station is a commonplace event, but the passengers on this train had just made a special trip. They're time travellers, retracing the route, the sights and the sounds of the Hunter's last steam rail service. Locomotive 3246, built in Manchester 78 years earlier and still going strong after travelling almost 5 million kilometres in its lifetime, hauled the last passenger service between Singleton and Newcastle. A former driver fondly remembers his time on the throttle.
They were an all-purpose engine. Any work you wanted to put them to, they'd do it. It didn't matter where it was or what type of train it was on, whether it was a goods train or a passenger train, they'd do their job.
The engine hauled the Melbourne and Brisbane mail and express runs and was a forerunner to the Newcastle Flyer service. It's now on static display at the Thirlmere Railway Museum south of Sydney, waiting restoration. Enthusiasts crowded into the carriages for its final run from Singleton in 1971. Others lined overhead bridges for a last glimpse as it steamed into Newcastle. Then, as now, some find the attraction of steam engines irresistible.
A sight that excites you, and it is something that really can't be replaced.
The steam train has got its own personality. You've got the smell of the coal burning, you've got the cinders, and you've got the smoke. And you can hear the rails going underneath you. They had something of their own that these trains will never have.
Sam Egan is surfing's one-man production line. He's spent most of the last 26 years hidden away in a shaping bay, and this year reached a milestone unmatched in Australia, 20,000 surfboards.
I don't know of anyone else in Australia, maybe Neil Purchase, I think he's done a fair few, but I don't know if he's done that many.
He started out shaping huge, heavy missiles from balsa wood. These days he builds state-of-the-art feather light models that are in demand the world over. Sam's son Luke is known as one of the world's most radical and progressive surfers. The fact he still relies on his dad's equipment speaks volumes for Sam's ability to change with the times. Life in the foam pit may not be as glamorous as life on the professional circuit, but Sam has no intentions of hanging up his planer.
I don't want to. I'm going to keep going while I buy my boards. I'll keep shaping them. I just love it. It keeps you young. Shape for all the young guys and surfing with them.
Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
This is an actual armed hold-up. The man in the beanie and stocking mask is holding a 25-centimetre kitchen knife and demanding money from the attendant.
He said, put the money in the bag and there'll be no trouble. So I did pretty quickly. I was a bit, I was taken by surprise. And, before I knew it, it was all over and he was out and gone and I was sort of figuring out what I should have done.
The robbery took place at about 5 a.m. at the Shell service station Walls End. Just over 24 hours earlier, the target had been the Caltex service station Islington, where 2 masked men armed with knives took cash from the till. The victims are invariably hapless night or dawn shift attendants who can do little but hand over the money.
I wasn't expecting it, to tell you the truth, but from now on, we'll be taking a few more precautions.
Security is being upgraded. Most service stations now use closed-circuit cameras, but they continue to be robbed at a rate of 2 or 3 a week. Police say the overall rate of armed hold-ups has dropped. However, there has been an alarming increase in small cash robberies, as thieves, deterred by high bank security, turn to softer targets like service stations. The death of a 37-year-old man crushed by a bank security screen at St Leonard's in Sydney yesterday will only serve to reinforce the hazards of taking on the big money outlets, encouraging more, often desperate bandits to grab what they can from those least able to defend themselves. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
The Hunter Area Health Service needs an injection of funds, and according to the Shadow Minister for Health, Andrew Refshaugi, it should be given one. He says the area is underfunded.
But the real problem here is the promise of a teaching hospital but not the real funding for it, the historical underfunding and the waste and mismanagement that has meant that there's no more money left, while this government's been spending it on trinkets, frivolities and publicising themselves.
While Andrew Refshaugi acknowledges the Hunt Area Health Board could be more efficient, he believes it may be unfairly blamed for the government's mistakes.
I believe the board at the moment is under threat. I believe that they have a chance now for the government to try and make them the scapegoats and sack them at the end of this week.
Last night, over 100 people gathered outside the Newcastle City Hall to protest about the possible cuts to health services. The Premier Nick Greiner was supposed to be the keynote speaker at the Hunter Valley Research Foundation dinner at the City Hall. Due to illness, he was unable to attend, and the Minister for State Development, Michael Yabsley, took his place.
Just 2 weeks ago, this used to be an indoor soccer centre. Now it's a haunt for thrill seekers looking for a new kick, especially with the cheaper rates weekdays around midday.
We've found a lot of guys coming down in their lunchtime. I guess a little bit of stress relief, get their mind off the job. It's been very, very popular with both the workers and the executives as well.
Drivers can top speeds of 35 kilometres per hour on the 160 metre track. The lap record is 10.6 seconds.
It's very similar to Formula One Grand Prix racing. They really find that the adjustments on the cars and the karts are very similar, and the racing itself, the style of driving is very similar to Formula One as well.
While it certainly helps to have the skills of Ayrton Senna or Nigel Mansell, all you really need is parental consent if you're under 18 and a bit of get up and go. It may not look fast, but from the driver's seat you feel like you're flying. The go-karts are near replicas of racing karts except for the motors. These models powered by 300cc Kawasaki engines. Drivers must stick to a strict system of rules on the track, just like their heroes in Formula One.
Oh, beautifully driven. No one can catch this man.
The sun shone and Wyong seemed awash with money for race day celebrations marking the opening of the Paul Levick grandstand. The totes and bookies tabled about $4 million between them, while the punters didn't seem too upset to part with a few hard-won dollars for the privilege of just being there.
It's very nice, sunny, and not back many winners, but not too bad. There's a couple to go yet, so we might take a couple more yet.
The stand is built on 3 levels with public and members bars, lounges, totalisers, fast food and reception areas, as well as committee, stewards and jockey rooms. Race callers and commentators enjoy a lofty view over the course. It was a proud day for Wyong Turf Club chairman Paul Levick.
It'll go down in history as a big event, and $6.5 million is a lot of money to spend on a grandstand outside of Sydney, but we've done it, and we've done it proud, and it'll certainly, mind you, we hold 90 race meetings a year, and that's more than Rosehill and Randwick put together.
Minister for Sport and Racing George Souris took pleasure in endorsing the revenue-raising complex.
Racing is the most important part of our financial economy, and it's a very important tax-raising facility, but what we have here would really be the state-of-the-art luxury for the racing fraternity and the punting fraternity.
Main attractions included the running of the Interstate Jockeys Invitation, which was taken out by New South Wales country champ Bill Aspros on Our Ambition, ahead of Robert Thompson on Party Mood. The locally bred and trained veteran champion racehorse Lord Highbrow led out the starters for the feature event, the grandstand handicap over 1,100 metres.
At the head of the other Swift Beat, running on pretty well on the outside. Still Warner in front, less than 100 to go. Pycam on the outside and Swift Beat coming home well, but Warner wins. Warner has scored from Pycam and Celestial Model. Fourth home was...
Astonished residents of Saltash went to Neil Thompson's back paddock to examine the crater left by the stray practice bomb. Neil Thompson was working with his horses at about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon when the bombing run went awry.
I heard this loud whump. It sounded a bit closer than usual, and on observation it was only 200 metres away.
A large area of the paddock was set alight by a small explosive which sets off a cloud of white signal smoke as the bomb hits the ground. This afternoon, the RAF displayed fragments of the 12-kilo practice bomb at the Williamtown base. An inquiry into the cause of the incident has begun, but already the Air Force believes human error may have been a factor.
It looks at this stage, by the best we can decide, I guess, that it might have been a mistake on the part of a young pilot who's just graduated off course.
The practice range is about 3 kilometres from the community of Saltash. Aircraft use 2 types of practice bomb, one which rapidly decelerates and another which travels some distance before hitting the target. It's thought the pilot may have selected the wrong type of bomb for the approach. The Air Force insists that the practice weapon poses only a remote danger to the public.
If it had a house, it certainly would have been like a brick or something heavy metal hitting a house, would have put a hole in the roof.
But residents who have long opposed continued training operations over their homes say this incident is just the latest in a long run of near misses.
In the future, somewhere down the track, a disaster is going to occur.
It was a prized autograph for the Knights, a 3-year contract with arguably the best front rower in the Winfield Cup. Sarge's brilliant form on the paddock has had the scouts from St George, Gold Coast, Manly, Balmain and English club Leeds after a deal. But Mark is staying in his hometown.
And the Newcastle offer was compared very favourably, and obviously I'm pretty much established in Newcastle. My family that live here, and I've been back with the club for 3 years, and I think that the club's still got a very solid future.
Knights officials would not comment on the size of the contract.
Is he getting more than 100 grand a season?
Well, you're entitled to speculate on whatever amount you like.
As the Knights' first kangaroo, Mark Sargent is a hero not only with the fans but also within the club. His decision to stay till 1994 is a major boost for morale.
There are plenty of guys coming through the grades, as evidenced by the strong performance of the lower grades and the junior sides this year. And I think the club's got a good future, and I'd like to be part of that future as much as possible.
At training tonight, Mark confirmed he still hopes to work culturing young talent in the club, but an official position as development officer is yet to be announced. Peter Ryan, NBN News.